I'm Yuri Go, and it's almost Christmas time, which means for most of you, winter and cold and maybe snow and stuff. Not for me. For me, it means heat and death and insects. Not today, thankfully. It's all rainy and cold, so it's like 22 degrees. But normally, it is awful. Regardless, I'm going to show you how to make a winter Christmas level music kind of thing. So, firstly, we're just going to talk about some instrumentation. The key instruments to get this winter feel across is metallic instruments. That is, ones with a metallic timbre. Tubular bells, glockenspiel, celeste. I didn't use that one, but it's also good. Tuned bells or some kind of other metallic object that you can hit that has a pitch. Those are going to be the backbone to conveying this winter emotion. Next, but very important still, is warm brass. Now, warm brass isn't an instrument, it's a register in all of the brass instruments. For example, on the trumpet, the low end is what gets that warm sound. The high end is a bit like in your face and bright and stuff. On the tuba, for example, the low sound is a bit like goofy or like, I don't know, maybe if you overblow it, it's kind of powerful. But that super high range, high register, is where you're going to get that warm sound. On the horns, it's the mid to high kind of area, and so on. So it really doesn't matter which instrument you're using. The important part is how you use that instrument and which register you want it to be in. I wouldn't say winds or strings convey a Christmassy or winter emotion, but they're always used in it, so go wild, use as many as you want. Then to round off the pitched instruments, we've got choir. And I would opt for children's choir over adult choir because it conveys more like a caroling kind of sound or like a childish or happy kind of emotion as opposed to an adult choir that sounds a bit more somber and mature. And then for the non-pitched instruments, the percussion side of things, do not use any drums. I mean, I guess if you want to make it upbeat or whatever, sure, you can always add it. There's always exceptions. But you don't want to add any drums. It's just kind of like small little toy percussion kind of things. Obviously, sleigh bells. That's the name of an instrument. Do I even need to explain more? Triangles, other bell things. There's lots of them. Anything that's metal that you can hit that's going to give a hollow sound rather than a full sound. I'd give like a gong a full solid sound. That's not what you want to be hitting. A triangle is quite a hollow, high pitch kind of thing. That's the more vibe that we're going for. All right, now we're going to move into the actual door and I'm going to show you some stuff and some other contextual things. Now, it's really important to get this Christmassy sound that we go very upbeat. Unless we're going for that like sleepy, cozy kind of vibe, which is also a very Christmassy thing, we're probably going to want to go for this, upbeat kind of sound. And to get this upbeat kind of sound, we need fast rhythms. So I've got these chugging strings. You could go for a gallop kind of sound where they got like kind of thing, or any other rhythm that you want to add into that. I opted not to do that. I just wanted kind of a standard sound, but I did add into the bass to do its own kind of rhythm to accent certain parts. And I didn't even bother to accent that on any of the other instruments. As you can see, they're all pretty standard velocity. But I thought that just helped give this little bit of rhythm into there without overpowering it and making it such a clear rhythm. Because I didn't want these to be rhythmic, or I would have added a gallop or some kind of thing into there. We're just doing this standard chugging pattern. The only thing I would say to be cautious about with that like gallop kind of pattern is we do want this to be level music. So it depends on the game and the style and everything. But if you're going for a genre that's... Oh my god. Did you hear that? What was I even saying? So yeah, it depends on what kind of game and genre and style you're going for, but most of the time your level music is meant to be in the background and not take the player focus. But in this style, I was kind of going for something that would blend into the background, but still give that feel. Now, as I said before, no drums, so we get all of our rhythm coming from mainly from these sleigh bells. And then we do a little bit of accenting in this triangle part down here. Now, whilst we don't want drums, because I think that makes it a bit too powerful and takes away from this, like, again, this light-hearted vibe that we're going for, we do want a lot of impacts. So you can see I've got Glockenspiel doing this little thing here at the start of every, like, 8 bars or whatever. It kind of depends. We've got Tubular Bells also helping accent it. And then we've got heaps of cymbal rolls. Then to round it off, we also have this mark tree somewhere. Is it this one, I think? Also just playing transitions. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the harmonic part of this piece, which I think is the coolest part. So I've used these chords up here. C, G, C, A flat, C, E flat, A flat, B flat. That's that verse part, A section, whatever you want to call it. Now, we'll talk about that in a second. First, we want to make it happy and upbeat. So how do we get this happy vibe? Well, let's approach this from a different angle and say, how do we get a sad vibe? We take a major chord, for example, and how do we make it sadder? We flatten one of the notes. And it doesn't matter which note we flatten, it's still going to sound sadder. So by principle, if we sharpen a note, it'll sound brighter. And yes, some of those chords are a little unbalanced because we can balance things properly or improperly, and that was not really a careful playing. But even with an unbalanced chord, it is brighter in sound. Also, dissonance is context-based anyway, so there is definitely a way that you can have that without it sounding clashy. But as I played it then, it did sound clashy. But just ignore that for now and just think about brightness exclusively. So, if we now talk about those chords again, what key are we in? You would probably say C minor, because we've got that E flat, we've got that A flat, and that B flat. Pretty standard. But we are actually in C major. Yeah, sure, you could argue that this G over here should actually be a G minor instead of G major. But it's not uncommon to use the 5th of a key and change it to the major because it has a nicer resolution. As opposed to... it's not as powerful a resolution. So we can ignore that, but it doesn't matter anyway because it's not in minor, despite what these chords are telling you. So what we're really doing here is we're playing around this 1 to flat 6. Which is quite a common movie, music, media composition thing that gets this romantic sound or magical sound or something. Which is kind of what we're going for both of these anyway. Then, later, we have this progression. A flat, B flat, C. Which is flat 6, flat 7 root. Which is that same progression that's used in like the victory music for Final Fantasy. But it's just a very common major resolution sound. So if we hear this now... you can hear that even though these chords are kind of from C minor, it makes a very happy sound to get that resolution. So that's all we're kind of going for here. This E flat, which is definitely out of the key, that one's coming to be the 5 to 1, this secondary dominant thing we've got going on from this A flat here. So if we do the E flat... can hear now in context it also sounds very major. But also in context it could sound quite minor. Which is where we're coming back to that old topic that I just said earlier. Where if we want to make things brighter, we sharpen them. So by playing these minor chords, but doing major over it, you can hear how much brighter that sounds than if we were to play in this. Yeah, okay, there's a little bit of clashiness there because it should have that minor key signature, but you can hear how much brighter it makes that sound. So by pretty much doing this entire thing in these weird chords, we can actually play around this sharper, makes brighter sound and get over this really happy sort of Christmassy vibe. So I'm just going to play you the melody with those chords and you can kind of hear a little bit of it. The thing that most people think about Christmas is Christmas carols, and Christmas carols have a very simple structure where it's kind of the same part repeating over and over with slightly different lyrics. And that's kind of the vibe that I went for here. So this first part, it repeats again. Fast runs in the woodwind sections. So even though it is the same parts, just like a normal Christmas carol, it's got a bit more excitement and it kind of feels like it's not just repeating this boring thing for a second time. Now I did, however, add a B section because I felt like that was necessary. And in this B section, we do go actually to this C minor chord to get this kind of sadder sound. But that's not really important. It's still basically the same thing, still in this key of C. What we did do is we moved from these chugging on these string instruments to held chords on the strings, and we moved the chugging up here into the woodwinds. So for the B section, we get this change to this warmth. So we get this warm change where we get the nice held strings, but we still have this chugging going on because it comes through now. And it's important that we do have this chugging because without the momentum, it feels like it flops. It just feels like we've built up to something and feels like it's still moving forward. As I said, one, to help it sound more Christmas carol-y, and two, to help these held warm chords, we finally brought in this choir. And again, it is children's choir. And I did some EQing on this, that you can see here, where I really cut down these low voices out, and then I cut down some of these highs too, because it was too bright. So we've only got this kind of normal part in this mid-section, which is where that warmth comes from. So even though it sounds a little stunted by itself, in context, how that just starts to make these, like, overtones that are clashing. Also, to help get this more warm sound, I added these, like, glissandos in the harp, which are kind of just cool, really. Going up. If you don't know how a harp works, maybe I'll do a video on it, but you can actually change the notes. So each string can go up a semitone or down a semitone. So we're not just doing like a normal gliss like it would sound like on a piano where we're hitting every single note of the C major scale. We actually tune down this F here so it becomes an E or an F flat. And then we tune up this C so it becomes, sorry, this B so it becomes a B sharp or a C. And so now when you hear it, it sounds like this. So you get those double ups, which makes less random notes in the scale, and then it sounds like a prettier sweep. So if you don't have a plugin that on Harp that actually does that, just be aware of which notes you're going to use. Like I can change it here, but if you don't, just be aware that you're not actually doing a normal scale like this. It is actually specific notes. Anyway, that's just doing random kind of sweepy stuff to help make this section sound a bit more majestic. Also, this section, and when you listen to the full piece, you'll hear it. This section, this B section, I definitely would have done twice, and I wouldn't have done this, flat 6, flat 7, 1 resolution so quickly, because it's too much of it too quickly. Like, it needs to breathe a little bit before it has all of these constant resolutions. But because this is an actual piece, and it's not for an actual game or anything, and it's just for a fun video, I couldn't be bothered to do another section. But I definitely would do one. So if you're thinking, sounds a bit weird, yeah, that's why. So we're just going to talk about these runs a little bit more, because these interest runs that I added have some really cool things going on. So firstly, we're going to talk about this little run here. And you'll notice I opted for the xylophone rather than a glockenspiel, even though I have a glockenspiel doing heaps of stuff. I just thought, yes, it's Christmassy, yes, you have to sound Christmassy, but it just felt like I was doing too much metal stuff, and it was just too tangy and in your face and sort of thing. And the xylophone is still quite a bright sound. It's not like the marimba that's very deep and full. It's just, but it's not more metal. So it was a nice little change, but still gives that kind of metal-ish feel that you might not think about. And it's the only time it plays in the entire piece. So a common issue with runs is you want them to go for a full bar or for half a bar or whatever, and there's not enough notes in the scale to do a scalic run. So this was a problem here, and you'll see it starts almost chromatic and then breaks away into the actual just C major scale. And we're going to hear this right now. You'll see they're also not doing the same notes here. They start on different notes, they play different notes. So what am I actually doing here? Is it just the chromatic scale and we're just trying to make this? No, it's not actually. What we're doing is, with exception to this note, this flat second, which does come up often in these kind of runs, we're actually just doing both the major and the minor scale. So again, exception to this, we got C, normal, D, normal, E flat, the flat third, or the minor third, then the major third. Then we go to F. We do not do the F sharp or G flat, because that's that diminished fifth, which is a very gritty note, and it's not in either of those scales. Then F to G, normal. Then we've got that flat 6, or the minor 6, into the major 6, into the minor 7, into the major 7. And then it'll break off whenever it fits. So this one broke off a lot earlier because it had started lower and went higher, as opposed to this one, which, you know. And we did this in a lot of different parts, in a lot of different sections. So yeah, taking from that parallel major minor to make a chromatic scale that fits better was a cool little thing that I honestly haven't done before. I don't think I'm like some genius for thinking of it, but yeah, use it. It's cool. We have this other descending run here in the brass, in the trombones actually, pretty much exclusively. And I also included tubular bells for it, because I thought it was a nice way to accent those notes. I just felt like it sounded kind of church belly, and the brass kind of helped give that depth and that musicality to it. But speaking of this accenting, this isn't part of the runs, but I do want to talk about it too. You'll hear here that I got the glockenspiel, and it started to do accenting on It was nice that it wasn't an actual instrument, as opposed to like the strings, like the violins that were clear melody, or the clarinet and the winds. They all kind of played in, not unison, they were doing harmonies and different octaves and stuff, but they kind of played as one instrument, as a wind section, rather than individual parts. But yeah, I thought it was really cool that I really often did this, again, a lot of different parts, where I would just bring in this glockenspiel to do some accenting of parts. And it just brought this bright little happy part into there. The kind of... And it doubles so well with brass. It doubles so well with winds, as you heard there and in the earlier section. So it's very cool. Now, final thing that I want to talk about is not a wintry thing, but it is a good compositional thing that you should add to your brain. And that's scalic runs like this. So this is just a random run, right? Doesn't really lead anywhere. That's fine, whatever. But it is cooler to make your scalic runs actually lead places. And they can lead to either the melody or the counter melody is the best way to do it. So make them move up and fall into place. And here you'll see it's both. This clarinet does a counter melody that is in the brass, and then everything else is doing the main melody. It's just a bit nicer than yeah, it's just a bit nicer than if they were to just go up and just stop playing like they did here or there. Which also has its place, and there's a reason I did it, but yeah, think about that. Alright, well, that is everything. So, hope you enjoyed it. Have a Merry Christmas. Guys, as I'm recording this now, we are like 4 subscribers away from 300. And it would be so sick to hit 300 before the end of the year. I have so many videos planned, many already done. So there will be a video every 2 weeks for the next few months. Please subscribe, see more stuff. If you want to see something specific, let me know. I'm always trying to do what you guys want. So thank you. Have a good day. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.